I'll never forget that night. I had too much to drink at the bar, and the next thing I knew, I was stumbling out into the freezing winter air. I don't remember much after that, but I do recall feeling like I was floating, like my feet weren't touching the ground. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the cold pavement, my head throbbing. I tried to sit up, but a wave of nausea washed over me, forcing me back down. That's when I saw them, two shadowy figures lurking nearby. They crept closer, their eyes gleaming with a sinister intent. I tried to scream, but my voice was barely a whisper. They snatched my purse, ripping it from my shoulder. I felt a surge of panic as they rummaged through my belongings, stealing my cash, ID, and phone. I was completely helpless, lying there as they vanished into the night, leaving me alone and vulnerable. But then, just as I thought things couldn't get any worse, I saw him. A handsome stranger, standing over me with a look of concern etched on his face. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, his voice low and soothing. I tried to respond, but my voice was still shaky. He knelt down beside me, his eyes locked on mine. "You're freezing," he said, slipping off his jacket and wrapping it around my shoulders. I felt a surge of gratitude towards this stranger, who was suddenly my only hope in this desperate situation. As I looked up at him, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. He was handsome, with piercing blue eyes and chiseled features. But it was his kind smile that put me at ease. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice still shaky. He helped me sit up, and I leaned against him, feeling a wave of dizziness wash over me. "Easy," he said, holding me steady. "You've had a rough night." I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. I was the daughter of a millionaire, and yet, here I was, helpless and alone on a cold winter night. The stranger helped me to my feet, and I leaned against him, feeling grateful for his support. "Where am I?" I asked, looking around. "You're on the outskirts of town," he replied. "I was driving by and saw you lying here." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief. At least I was safe now. But as I looked up at the stranger, I don't know what came over me, but I suddenly felt a strong desire to stay with this stranger, to prolong the time we spent together. "I don't want to go home," I said, looking up at him. He raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by my request. "Where do you want to go then?" he asked.
I hesitated, feeling a sense of uncertainty.
But then, I looked into his eyes, and I knew exactly what I wanted.
"Can I go to your place?"
I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me for a long moment, as if sizing me up. And then, to my surprise, he nodded. "Okay," he said. "You can stay at my place, and we'll figure out what to do in the morning." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. And as he helped me to walk to his car, I wonder why I want to stay with him. I don't remember much after getting into the car. The next thing I knew, I was waking up to an unfamiliar ceiling. I was lying on a comfortable bed, covered in a warm blanket. As I sat up, I looked around the room. It was cozy, with a fireplace crackling in the corner. And then, my eyes landed on him. He was sleeping on the sofa, a gentle smile on his face. I felt a surge of gratitude towards this stranger, who had taken me in and given me a place to stay. I looked around the room again, trying to take in more details. It was a nice apartment, tastefully decorated. I threw off the covers and got out of bed, trying not to make too much noise. I walked over to the window and looked out. It was still winter, and the snow-covered trees sparkled in the morning light. As I turned back to the room, I was still thinking about how I could prolong my stay and get closer to this mysterious stranger. I felt a flutter in my chest as I wondered what would happen next. But little did I know, fate had already set things in motion. As I glanced around the room, I noticed that the stranger was now in the shower, the sound of running water filling the air. My eyes wandered to the bedside table, where I spotted his ID badge. I picked it up, curiosity getting the better of me. And that's when I saw it, his name, and his title, project manager at my dad's company. My heart skipped a beat as I stared at the ID, my mind racing with questions. What was he doing here? How did he end up being my rescuer? And what would happen when he found out who I really was? I decided to keep my identity a secret, at least for now. I didn't want to reveal my connection to my dad's company, or the fact that I was the daughter of a wealthy businessman. And as for him, I was curious to see how long it would take him to figure out who I was, or if he would even care. I put the ID badge back on the table, trying to act nonchalant. When he came out of the shower, I was sitting on the bed, pretending to be interested in my surroundings. "Hey, how are you feeling?" he asked, toweling off his hair. "I'm good, thanks," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Your place is really nice." He smiled, seeming to relax a bit. "Thanks, I've tried to make it feel like home." I nodded, taking in the cozy atmosphere. It was strange, but I felt like I could trust him, at least for now. "So, what's your name?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "My name is Ethan," he replied, smiling.
And you are?
I hesitated for a moment, unsure how much to reveal. "I'm just a girl who got lost in the snow," I said, trying to laugh it off. Ethan raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying my story. "Well, just a girl who got lost in the snow. You're welcome to stay here until the storm passes," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I smiled, feeling a flutter in my chest. "Thanks, Ethan. That's really kind of you." As I looked into Ethan's eyes, I felt my heart skip a beat. I was trying to control myself, to pretend that I wasn't falling for him. But it was no use. I couldn't deny the way I felt. I was drawn to his kind and gentle nature, his warm smile, and his piercing eyes. I felt like I could trust him with my deepest secrets. As we spent more time together, I found myself wanting to know everything about him. What he liked, what he disliked, what made him tick. Ethan, on the other hand, seemed oblivious to my feelings. He treated me with kindness and respect, but I couldn't help but wonder. Did he feel the same way? I quickly gathered my things, trying to appear calm. "I should go," I said, avoiding eye contact. Ethan looked concerned. "Is everything okay? Did I do something wrong?"
I shook my head, feeling my heart racing.
"No, it's just, I need to go." As I turned to leave, Ethan caught my arm. "Hey, wait," he said, his voice soft. I turned back to him, my heart skipping a beat. "What?" Ethan looked into my eyes, his expression serious. "I just wanted to say, I really like having you around. You're safe here, and I want you to know that." My heart fluttered at his words, but I didn't say anything. I just smiled and nodded, trying to play it cool. As I left Ethan's apartment, I couldn't help but wonder. Did he feel the same way? And would he ever tell me? I smiled, feeling a spark of excitement. "I'd love to," I said, trying to sound casual. Ethan grinned, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Great. I'll pick you up at 7 p.m. on Saturday." I nodded, feeling a flutter in my chest.
Sounds perfect.
As we exchanged numbers and said our goodbyes, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. What would our dinner date be like? Would it be just a friendly dinner, or something more? As the days went by, I found myself constantly thinking about Ethan. I couldn't stop replaying our conversations in my head, remembering the way he smiled, the way he laughed. I tried to focus on my daily routine, but my mind kept wandering back to him. I wondered what he was doing, who he was with, and what he was thinking. I felt like I was losing control, like my thoughts were consumed by this one person. But at the same time, it felt exciting. Was I falling for him? And if so, what did that mean for our dinner date on Saturday? Saturday evening arrived, and I was a nervous wreck. I had spent hours getting ready, trying on different outfits and doing my hair and makeup. When the doorbell rang, I took a deep breath and answered it. Ethan was standing on my porch, looking handsome in a black shirt and jeans. "Hey," he said, smiling.
You look amazing.
I blushed, feeling a flutter in my chest. "Thanks," I said, trying to sound casual. We drove to the restaurant, chatting easily about everything from music to movies. When we arrived, Ethan opened the door for me and we were ushered to our table. The restaurant was cozy and intimate, with soft music playing in the background. Ethan ordered wine and we perused the menu, discussing our options. As we waited for our food to arrive, Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. I'm really glad you could make it tonight, he said, looking into my eyes. My heart skipped a beat as I felt a spark of electricity run through my body. I'm glad I could make it too, I said, smiling. Our food arrived, and we spent the rest of the evening laughing and talking, enjoying each other's company. As the night drew to a close, Ethan walked me home, his arm around my shoulders. We stood on my porch, looking into each other's eyes. I had a great time tonight, Ethan said, his voice low and husky. I did too, I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. And then, without another word, Ethan leaned in and kissed me. I asked Ethan, can I spend another night at your place? He smiled, his eyes lighting up with happiness. Of course you can, he said, pulling me into a hug. We got back into the car, and Ethan drove with a huge smile on his face. He was humming along to the music, and I couldn't help but laugh at his infectious happiness. But our joy was short-lived. As we drove, a truck suddenly appeared out of nowhere and slammed into our car.
I remember feeling a jolt of fear and 10. Noting.
When I came to, I was in a hospital bed, surrounded by beeping machines and sterile white walls. I tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through my head. A nurse rushed over to me, concern etched on her face. Don't try to move, sweetie, she said. You've been in an accident. I looked around, frantically searching for Ethan, but he was nowhere to be found.
Where is Ethan?
I asked the nurse, my voice shaking. She looked at me with sad eyes. I'm so sorry, she said. Ethan didn't make it. He passed away at the scene of the accident.
Those words shattered my world.
I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, like all the air had been sucked out of me. I couldn't believe Ethan was really gone. It felt like a nightmare, like I'd wake up and he'd be there, smiling at me. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I realized that Ethan was truly gone. And I was left with a gaping hole in my heart. Like and subscribe for more.